I can still hear the stunned silence that followed the message I sent to my wife's family. Nobody replied for nearly a minute, yet somehow that silence screamed louder than any angry words ever could. My hands trembled as I stared at the phone, knowing there was no turning back. But if you want to understand why I made a decision that shattered 14 years of marriage in a single evening, you first need to understand how quietly betrayal can grow. My name is Nathan Carter, and until last autumn I believed trust was the strongest thing two people could build together. Emily and I met at a neighborhood charity fundraiser. She laughed when I accidentally spilled lemonade on my own shoes instead of pouring it into a cup, and that carefree smile stayed with me long after the event ended. Within a year, we were inseparable. She loved painting landscapes while I spent my days managing commercial construction projects. Our personalities couldn't have been more different, yet they fit together naturally. I planned everything. She followed her heart. Somehow that balance carried us through 14 years of birthdays, road trips, family holidays, and late-night conversations about dreams we hoped to achieve together. I worked longer hours so she could leave her office job and focus on selling artwork online. Watching her succeed felt like my own victory. I never regretted sacrificing weekends or taking extra contracts because every paycheck felt like another brick laid in the future we were creating. Then, almost without warning, tiny details started refusing to fit the picture I knew. Emily became strangely protective of her phone. She started placing it face down on every table and carrying it even when walking to another room. Messages made her smile, but those smiles disappeared the moment she noticed me watching. She blamed everything on new clients interested in commissioning paintings. I accepted the explanation because trusting your spouse is supposed to be normal. Soon her evening outings became more frequent. Coffee with friends stretched into 5-hour disappearances. Art meetings happened twice a week despite no noticeable increase in sales. New dresses appeared inside the closet, still carrying price tags, yet she insisted they had been sitting there for months. The perfume she rarely used became part of her daily routine. Even grocery shopping suddenly required makeup that looked more suitable for a formal dinner than a quick trip to the supermarket. Each explanation sounded reasonable on its own, but together they formed a puzzle that refused to make sense. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. After all, this was the woman who sat beside my hospital bed after emergency surgery and held my hand until I fell asleep. She had comforted me when my mother passed away and celebrated every promotion I earned. Surely someone capable of such kindness couldn't also be hiding another life. Yet every instinct I possessed whispered the same warning. Something had changed, and whatever it was threatened to destroy everything I believed about my marriage. One sleepless night, while Emily rested peacefully beside me, I stared into the darkness and realized hope alone would never answer the questions consuming me. If I wanted the truth, I would have to stop believing comforting stories and start following undeniable facts. That single decision became the first step toward a discovery neither of us would ever escape. The next morning I began paying attention instead of making excuses. Every unusual detail went into a small notebook I kept inside my truck. I recorded the mileage on Emily's SUV before leaving for work and checked it again every evening. Within days, a pattern appeared. Every so-called art meeting added almost exactly 40 miles to the odometer. Every girl's dinner ended with nearly identical distances. It was too consistent to be coincidence. I resisted the temptation to confront her because accusations without proof would only give her time to hide whatever she was doing. Instead, I quietly gathered facts. During lunch breaks, I reviewed our shared phone records, something I had ignored for years because I never imagined needing them. One unfamiliar number appeared over and over again. Calls during the afternoon, text messages late into the night, sometimes dozens in a single day. The number wasn't saved under any name I recognized. Curiosity became determination. An online search connected the phone to a man named Ryan Mercer, a divorced financial consultant living across town. His public social media profile showed little beyond business conferences, golf tournaments, and carefully posed photographs, but one detail caught my attention. Several of his recent posts had been liked by Emily, even though she had never once mentioned knowing him. That discovery turned the uneasy feeling in my stomach into something much heavier. A week later, I left work early, telling my supervisor I had a doctor's appointment. Instead of driving to the clinic, I parked near our neighborhood and waited. Right on schedule, Emily backed out of the driveway wearing a dress she claimed she had bought for an upcoming family dinner. She drove straight past the art supply store where she supposedly had a client meeting. Instead, she headed toward a quiet residential neighborhood nearly 20 miles away. I stayed several cars behind, careful never to get close enough for her to notice. She eventually pulled into the driveway of a small brick house surrounded by oak trees. Before she even reached the front steps, the door opened. Ryan greeted her with a smile that was far too familiar. They embraced without hesitation, and moments later they kissed as though they had repeated the same greeting countless times before. My grip tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Every excuse, every late-night message, every unexplained trip suddenly fit together with painful clarity. For several minutes I couldn't breathe properly. Part of me wanted to storm across the lawn and demand answers, but anger would accomplish nothing. I forced myself to remain still and photographed the address, the license plate in the driveway, and the time displayed on my dashboard clock. Nearly 3 hours later, Emily walked out looking relaxed, laughing at something Ryan whispered before they kissed again. She adjusted her hair using the car mirror and drove home. I took a different route so I would arrive after her. When I stepped through our front door, she greeted me with the same warm smile she had worn every evening for years. Dinner was already cooking, soft music filled the kitchen, and she asked how work had gone. I looked into the eyes of the woman I loved and realized she could lie without the slightest hesitation. While she described an imaginary afternoon spent discussing paintings with clients, I quietly made another decision. Discovering the affair wasn't the end of the story, it was only the beginning. From that moment forward, every move I made would be careful, deliberate, and impossible for her to deny. For the next 2 weeks, I became the husband Emily expected me to be. I brought home her favorite flowers after work, suggested weekend movie nights, and even surprised her with reservations at the Italian restaurant where we had celebrated our 10th anniversary. She smiled through every gesture, thanked me for being so thoughtful, then continued slipping away to meet Ryan whenever she believed I wasn't paying attention. The contrast was almost unbearable. During the day, I quietly organized every piece of evidence I had collected. Photographs, phone records, dates, locations, and copies of our financial statements were stored in multiple secure folders. I also met with a divorce attorney who advised me to stay calm, protect my assets, and never confront her until every legal document was ready. By the time the paperwork was complete, I wasn't looking for revenge anymore. I wanted the truth to stand where no excuse could bury it. The opportunity arrived sooner than I expected. Emily's parents invited the entire family to their annual autumn dinner, a tradition attended by siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, and lifelong family friends. Nearly 20 people gathered around the backyard beneath strings of warm lights, laughing over homemade food while children chased each other across the lawn. Emily moved through the crowd as though nothing in her life had changed, accepting compliments, hugging relatives, and introducing herself as the devoted wife everyone believed she was. Halfway through the evening, her father tapped a glass and thanked everyone for coming. Before he could continue, I politely asked if I could say a few words. Smiling, he handed me the microphone without hesitation. I began by thanking the family for welcoming me all those years ago and for treating me like one of their own. Then I admitted there was something I could no longer keep hidden. Every conversation stopped. Emily looked at me with polite confusion that slowly transformed into uneasiness. I connected my phone to the television on the patio and displayed a timeline instead of dramatic photographs. One by one, dates appeared beside matching phone records, location histories, and financial receipts. I calmly explained where Emily claimed to be on each occasion and where she had actually gone. No shouting, no insults. Only facts supported by evidence. When Ryan's name appeared beside dozens of repeated calls and the photographs placed them together at his home, Emily's face drained of color. Her mother covered her mouth. Her younger sister stared at the screen in disbelief. Her father lowered his head as though the weight of the truth had become almost impossible to carry. Emily tried to interrupt, insisting there had to be an explanation, but every sentence collapsed beneath another documented fact. Finally, with tears streaming down her face, she admitted the affair had lasted over a year. The confession hurt more than the evidence ever had because it was the first completely honest thing she had said to me in months. I quietly handed her the divorce papers already prepared, wished her the peace she had searched for outside our marriage, and walked away before anyone could stop me. Behind me, I heard crying, angry voices and unanswered questions, but I never looked back. Some endings don't arrive with revenge or celebration. They arrive with quiet acceptance, because once the truth has been spoken aloud, there is nothing left worth arguing about. My marriage ended that night, but so did the burden of living inside someone else's lie. From that moment forward, whatever I built would stand on honesty instead of illusion.